and they will have access to that. But then ambassadors can also consult with customers, and then of course we have our DevOps as a last line of support. I'll leave all of this. There are some go-to-market marketing assets that you'll be made available. There will be demos that you can start using starting next week. There will be video demos. There will be what we call a click-through demo that doesn't require any internet access. So you can showcase this. You can put it on your laptop, install it, run it. And you will also be able to have, I think we're working with the Uwe Hoffman and team to get some of you access to a running environment just to show through the incidents on SkyTap. In March, once after GA, we will have Advisor into the QRadar demo environment so that you can access it. At this point, I want to stop and hand over control to Chris Hankins here.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me get logged back in here. I'm going to go through a couple of the demo use cases that will be available via the methods that Vijay just talked about, the click-through demo, the SkyTap portal for the active demo, and the walkthroughs that we have. Let me pull this back up and time that on me. So from the use case perspective, we talked about the things that are the most successful from an analysis perspective, and I wanted to cover two of those scenarios specifically here. The first one I'd like to talk about is the malware campaign, because these are generally some of the most effective analyst options that we are able to see good results on. So as I was saying, we're looking at a QRadar offense, and I'm looking at the list of events. So this is what our analysts would be seeing. So what they're seeing is events that are compiled from proxy logs, antivirus events, things that just indicate that something of a malicious nature has happened involving web traffic and potentially malicious downloaded files. So, extracting information from these and doing all the research manually is going to take potentially, a long time in some organizations, depending on the multitude of offenses they have. And that's where QRadar Advisor with Watson really helps to shave down the amount of time. So these same offenses have been pre-analyzed in Watson for the purposes of time here. But what we can see is that Watson has walked through and indicated that we have clear evidence of malware detected based on our server network. And we get that information from overview information that is brought in from the offense to Advisor. So the details at the top here indicate, that information has been brought over. So as we've done the investigation, we've seen the insights that are brought back and has been discovered, enriching, kind of what was done from the QRadar data mining analysis, and provides additional indicators that were particularly part of the original offense. So what we've seen from the summary information is that we can kind of get a quick idea of what relevant artifacts were gathered from the environment and investigated through Watson for Cybersecurity, so that it was able to perform the query that we're looking for and run a discovery to kind of explore deeper into what and provide a more direct path for incident response for us. So what Watson did is it walked through its vast knowledge of data, the security corpus, and we're able to pull out additional indicators and take a look, through the structured and unstructured information, the blogs, the forums, the websites, the X-Force data, and get additional reasoning to help us. So what we're looking at in this particular stage is what we call stage 2. This is the insights. This is what Watson has provided back and determined that a particular offense, in this case, has been associated with a particular malware campaign of poison ivy. So we've been able to identify something specifically that will help us pinpoint the remediation effort that needs to be done. So besides poison ivy being identified, Watson has also provided additional observables from the investigation, such as additional file names and URLs that are here to help our analysts then locate other potentially compromised endpoints on the network. So if I step back and take a look at the stage 1 process here, we see the information that was gathered and submitted for analysis to the Watson for Cybersecurity. And in this case, we see that this was centered around a particular user, as indicated by our yellow entity here, and a particular user is tied to that IP address. We see that user visited some websites, potentially where one of those was malicious and downloaded the executable to their system, along with the associated malware here in this particular entity. We get a little bit of X-Force information back from a high level, but our research didn't really indicate anything specific at that moment. So along with the malware IP addresses, URLs, and the additional insight information is where we pass that additional entity or those objects that are from our mappings to Watson to give us the additional context. So going back into our analysis, we can see that as the Poison Ivy malware campaign was attacked, we also identified those additional file hashes and the additional second malicious executable file here that we can now pass on for a remediation effort. So that's the malware use case demonstration. What I'd like to do is now talk about the suspicious activity use case. So one of the things that QRadar does remarkably well, and what sets us apart from our real differentiators, is the fact that we chain numerous events together that have happened, over a particular period of time, whether it be hours or days or even longer than that. So what QRadar is good at doing is being able to notice suspicious activity, make note of it, and start correlating that information together. And the particular offense that we're looking at here, we can see that this event started with an informational email message followed by suspicious executable downloads, followed by some web activity. So, coming from the world of operations, I would suspect that this is potentially like a phishing campaign. So we would want to look and dig in further to understand kind of what is specifically happening here. If we look briefly at the Watson Insights information that's already been discovered for this analysis, we can see that 52 observables were actually mined from our QRadar data. That's quite a bit of effort that would take on the manual part. There's a lot of data points here which Watson could draw deeper insights on for us. So utilizing the Watson analysis, we actually reasoned that 13 new indicators were discovered that were not part of our offense from the data mining process, many of which are known to be suspicious. And interesting enough, we can see that the phishing campaign is actually related to a particular threat actor, which we will definitely want to explore even further. If we take a look at our insights in this particular case, let me make this a little bit larger. We can see that this particular graph compared to our first analysis has many different nodes and many different relationships that were explored by Watson. Watson helps display this is a pruned graph. So these are the key insights which are most pertinent to the investigation, makes it easier for our analysts to view. So these are the things that would be directly attributed to being able to start investigating to resolve the incident. Stepping back into stage 1 of our investigation, we kind of see how the offense came to be in this particular case. We see the offense in this case is centered around a user, the yellow entity, in our organization. This is probably our patient 0 of our suspected phishing campaign. Additionally, from what was mined, we can see there are many malware hashes, different virus names, associated URLs and IP addresses, but there's not a lot of threat intelligence information that we can gather from this at this particular moment. If we did our analysis by hand with something of this large of a quantity of observables, we could assume that we would probably eventually hit a dead end and eventually just kind of figure out this is maybe a particular malware campaign associated from like a spam malware. Additional manual investigation, though, could take hours, days, if not, to continue to draw similar conclusions as what Watson can draw in a matter of minutes. And come back to stage 2 and let's explore some of the information here. So Watson has provided our investigator critical details with just clicking on simple nodes. In this case, I clicked on a file node, and Watson has explored the threat that it's posing to the organization. Along with the IP information, the URL context that we get back from an X-Force Exchange report, we get additional linkages. We can derive threat risk associations and additional file names and paths just by clicking away. Needing more information or context on what we know about it, you can click right into the X-Force Exchange directly from the node itself. So Watson incorporates the use of structured and unstructured data to draw those deeper insights to display here into our investigation. In this case, our analysis has actually provided information on a possible threat actor that's based on the relationship information found within an unstructured data reference, that'd be a blog in our particular case here. By diving in and exploring this entity a little bit deeper, we can view the information associated with the insight. We're provided with a link to those insights and a confidence rating to further, help our manual investigation effort. So, as I was saying earlier, the graph is pruned to provide key insights. By coming over and turning off our key insights here on the left, we can take a deeper look into all of the relationship information that Watson was able to conclude regarding our investigation. So what we do is we get an additional view of extra indicators that we could potentially explore, things like file names, installation paths, threat entities, identity, additional malware hash files and executables. And all of this information is easily extractable and able to pass to our investigation team to continue the research and remediation efforts. But what I'd like to highlight is that Watson has actually observed this threat is strongly related to documented attacks to other entities. And we can tell that by information that we've been able to obtain. So we've done a threat actor. We can also see, in this particular case, we have government entities that have been identified in security blogs. So we can see that in this particular case, there's a deep knowledge of the investigation that's been done to indicate that we have more than just a seemingly simple phishing incident, and has pointed actually to signs of a much larger, more sophisticated threat, which would be hard to replicate under a critical time restraint in most response organizations. So that's two of the examples of use cases that we have are available to demonstrate and run through with our customers. There are more coming. So I will hand it back to Vijay to kind of wrap things up, and we'll take questions.
Thank you, Chris. I hope everyone found those demos helpful from an education perspective, but those are some of the scenarios that we will have recorded. We will have those as click-through demos as well. Again, let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, sir. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question, please press star followed by the number 1. Please unmute your phone and record your name clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. And to cancel your request, press star followed by the number 2. One moment, please, for the first question. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star followed by the number 1. One moment, please. There's one question here. Okay, we have a question from Michael Bright. Sir, you have an open line.
Hey, guys. Just a quick question. On the slide of
Michael, you're breaking up.
Hear me any better or no?
Yes, we can hear you better now.
So just on the slide of observables, you had 5 observables. I thought there were supposed to be like 20 observables.
Yes, there are approximately 20 observable types, but only 5 observables are being sent to Watson for cybersecurity.
Sorry, so you're saying there's 20 types, but only 5 are sent. So there is the option for the client to turn on different observables?
So the customer has an option of turning off the 5 that they don't want sent to Watson for cybersecurity.